Geometry Dash is a pretty simple game as there's only one single input. All you have to do is click, and although it might seem quite redundant, there are a multitude of different game modes inside of Geometry Dash, each having its own unique gameplay style. One of these game modes is called the Wave. The Wave is one of the simplest game modes as you hold to go up diagonally and release to go down diagonally. As it is such an incredible, simple game mode, it is also one of the most loved and praised game modes. So many levels use the wave, and one type of level that uses the wave are called 9 circles levels. 9 circles levels originate from the original level 9 circles uploaded in 2016. It has become a very revolutionary level, inspiring many level creators to create the genre of 9 circles levels. 9 Circles levels typically have relaxing to hard gameplay for their first 30% and then transition to the drop of the level, changing the player into a wave and going through tight gaps with some gravity and size changes. Two other popular 9 Circles levels, called Jawbreaker and Fairy Dust, have been arbitrarily put into a trilogy, dubbed the OG 9 Circles Trilogy, and in this video I will be analyzing each level as I have beaten all of them and determining their difficulty in comparison to each other. Without further ado, let's begin with 9 circles. Quick heads up is that I will be ranking every single section in the level, giving it a score from 0 to 10 in terms of difficulty, and then at the end I'll figure out an average and see how difficult on average the level is. So let's get into 9 circles. The first cube section is pretty simple. Just a couple of timings, some pads. Overall, I think I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10. Next, we have the ship, and the ship is quite trickier. It definitely has some tough moments, and because of that, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I also struggled on the ship for a while until I got consistent, so yeah, it's kind of hard. After that, we got the ball, and the ball is around the same difficulty as the cube, I would say. You'll sometimes die to it, but like not that much. So I'm gonna also give it a 4 out of 10. Now, after that, we have a bit of a break part, but I'm not going to count that part because that would bring down the average and it the level would be basically the same without it. So it doesn't count. And now let's get into the drop. So the drop has quite some gaps and it's definitely a tricky start. Um, I'm probably gonna give this around a 7 out of 10. The starting wave is quite difficult. There's also a fake, and when it slows down, you need to adapt to the speed change. So yeah, that's gonna be the first part of the wave. Then we have the upside down wave, and this part has tighter gaps but it's not that complicated. It's pretty simple. And then you also have a duel after that, which is also really simple and pretty easy. So overall, this entire section's gonna be around a 6 out of 10. After that, we have the mini wave, and the mini wave definitely makes things harder. You're gonna have to spam a bit more. You're gonna have to get through some quite tricky gaps. And overall, this entire mini wave section is gonna get an 8 out of 10. And then you're gonna go upside down, which makes it even harder, because we all know upside down just makes things harder overall. Like upside down chip, upside down cube, it just makes it a bit harder. And it definitely is harder because you're gonna have to spam a bit, you're gonna have to go through some more tight gaps, and you're gonna have to get through into this dual portal, which is really hard because you have to spam while upside down, and we know upside down, it's hard to be consistent with your clicks. So overall, that part's pretty difficult. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Lastly, you have your ending cube, and your ending cube, I mean, it's not too difficult, but you gotta think there's nerves, obviously. There's nerve control. You're at the end of the level, you're about to beat it, you're gonna get nervous, you're like, oh no, what if I fail here? And definitely pumps up the difficulty. So overall, this ending cube is harder than the starting cube. And accounting for nerves too, I would give it a 6 out of 10. And overall, That would place 9 circles at a 6.375 average, which is decently difficult. I mean, obviously, the pre-drop is obviously going to be easier than the drop because that just makes sense. So overall, a pretty respectable score for 9 circles. But now let's move on to Jawbreaker. Jawbreaker also starts with a cube, and overall the jumps are pretty simple too, and honestly a little easier than 9 circles. So I'm actually going to give it a 3 out of 10. Then you have a ship, which you do need to do a bit of straight fly, and there's also a few gravity changes, and you're at 2 times speed, so it's not the easiest thing, but it's definitely not too difficult. I would give it a 5 out of 10. After that, you have a ball, and the ball is pretty simple. There's a couple fakes. Well, there's a decent amount of fakes, but it's not too difficult. So I'm gonna give it the same difficulty as the cube, which is a 3 out of 10, because once you've practiced it, it's not that bad. Then we got the break section, which obviously we're skipping because that would just drag down the average. So now let's get into the drop of Jawbreaker. Now, Jawbreaker is mainly about gravity changes in its wave. Unlike Nine Circles, which is mostly about the tight gaps, Jawbreaker has a lot of gravity changes. So, as you see here, there's gravity changes, and you're gonna go mini and unmini. You're gonna be changing size and gravity a lot in this level. There's a lot of gravity and size changes. So, I would say I'm gonna split the wave into 4 sections so it can be on even with 9 circles because I split into 4 sections too. So we're just gonna start the first part of the Jawbreaker wave, which is overall pretty simple. It's not the hardest part, so I would give it a 7 out of 10. Then after you go and you start going upside down, then I would say you transition to the second quarter. And this second quarter is also not too difficult. It's definitely harder than the first part, but it's not too difficult. So I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Then you're gonna go slow here, and we get into the third quarter, which are 3 times speed. There's lots of tight gaps, lots of size changes, gravity changes. This part, I would say, is the hardest part of the level. And then the duel splits us off into the fourth quarter, so I would give it a 9 out of 10 in difficulty. Then after the duel, you got some pretty simple stuff. It's not too difficult, you're not going that fast. And then you get to the ending duel, and then you beat the level. So overall, the fourth quarter isn't that difficult, so I would give around a 7 out of 10, the same as the first quarter of the level, which means that Jawbreaker overall is going to get a score of 6, which is easier than 9 Circles, which got a score of 6.375, and we'll just have to see how Fairy Dust compares to that. So, let's get into Fairy Dust. Fairy Dust is the most recent level of the Nine Circles trilogy that I've beaten, so I'm quite familiar with it. So let's just start. So we got another pretty simple cube. I would give it around the same difficulty as the Nine Circles cube. There's a bit of memory, there's a couple of timings, so it's not that bad. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. Then you get this hilariously easy ball. This ball section is so free. It's so easy. It's really the easiest pre-drop part other than the break out of all of these levels. So I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. It's very simple. Then we get to the break, which is always pretty simple, and then you get into the wave. Now, this initial wave is actually quite difficult. It's pretty difficult, and I would say overall, it's gonna get a 9 out of 10 from me. There's pretty tight gaps, and then you're gonna transition into this duel. So this duel isn't too bad, and then you're gonna become mini, and then you're gonna go through some more tight gaps. There's a bit of spam too. You have to do some micro clicks, and then that's pretty much it for the second part of the wave. So honestly, that is also pretty difficult, so I'm also gonna give it a 9 out of 10. So then you're going to get into another duel. This duel is pretty easy, but then you get into another mini wave, and this mini wave is kind of hard. I died here quite a few times. Uh, you have to go into a duel portal, and then you gotta do some wave stuff. That part is gonna be the third part of the wave, and it's not actually, it is pretty hard. I'm actually just gonna give it a 9 out of 10 as well. So as you can see, Fairy Dust is quite a difficult wave, quite consistently difficult wave. But then lastly, we have the ending here. And the ending, this slow wave, I fluked it. This slow wave may look easy. It is not easy. You have to go very deep in when you're going into the Q portal, or else you'll become a mini wave and die there. That fake there is also quite hard to get in and out of. It's actually pretty hard, harder than it looks. And then you get a pretty free ending, just go through a tube. So that is Fairy Dust. And I would say that ending is about a 7 out of 10. So overall, Fairy Dust gets a score of 6.67. So that pretty much means that the order of difficulty would be Jawbreaker, with an overall of 6 difficulty, 9 Circles with an overall of 6.375 difficulty, and Fairy Dust with a difficulty of 6.67. So that was my analysis of 9 Circles, Jawbreaker, and Fairy Dust. I hope you liked the video, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.